Welcome back, scholars. We are studying the metaphysical poets, and today's poet is poet John Donne. Let's get into it. John Donne, English writer and Anglican cleric, preeminent metaphysical poet of his time, lived an exciting life, more so than you would expect for, a crusty old dead English poet. He was born in 1572 to Catholic parents at a time when practicing Catholicism was illegal in England. In fact, his brother would go on to die of the plague in prison. The reason he was locked up? Giving sanctuary to a priest. Don's father died when Don was 4. 6 months later, his mother remarried an Oxford-trained physician. This led to a number of educational opportunities for Donne. He went on to study English law for 2 years, spent 2 years as a gentleman adventurer in 1596 and 97, sailing to the Azores and other places. He took a job serving as a secretary for Thomas Egerton, the Lord Keeper of the Great Seal of England. Here, he developed an interest in statecraft and other foreign affairs. He also developed an interest in Anne More, the 17-year-old niece of his employer. So, John, also known as Jack Donne, and Anne More were married clandestinely in 1601. He snuck away. The old cliche of putting a ladder up to the house and to the girl's window and carrying her down the ladder and the two of you eloping was that sort of thing. Some months later, he revealed the marriage to his father-in-law, who wasn't too happy about it. He reacted violently to the news. He had Donne and his friends, the ones who had helped him with the marriage, had them locked up in prison, tried to get the marriage annulled, and had his brother-in-law try to fire his amorous secretary. The marriage was eventually accepted, but Donne still lost his job in 1602. He and his wife struggled. He struggled to find full-time gainful employment. He would write these polemics and other things. Along the way, he would try to find odd jobs, eventually hooking up with the ambassador to France, but he never found gainful employment, at least not full-time employment, until he took his holy orders 12 years later. The Donnes raised their children with help from the family and what other odd jobs he could. John Donne, though, took holy orders in January of 1615 at the urging of King James. King James, who said, I see what kind of preacher you are. You're very good at this. You have, despite your modesty and your, lack of confidence, you could do very well in the ministry. And he was right. Donne devoted himself fully to the ministry. He was well thought of, spoke at court, preached there to King James and the others many times. Donne's wife unfortunately died in childbirth in 1617, some 2 years later. Donne would go on to be elected the Dean of St. Paul's in 1621, became the most celebrated cleric of his age, often preaching for King James at court. Now, in the 3 decades after his death, his poetry was a major influence on English verse. However, he fell out of fashion during the Restoration period and remained out of fashion until the late 1800s. Very few poets, in fact, no English poet has worked so hard and has such a remarkable rise and fall of his work. For a couple of centuries, nobody read him, never thought much about him, until the late 1800s, the beginning of the modernist period. Donne was rediscovered in the 20th century by a group of avant-garde writers and readers of the modernist period, which is kind of unusual because it is the modernists who we credit with killing God. I don't mean they went into heaven and murdered him, but what happened is there was this movement away from things that had been previously explained by religion, now being explained by science. Over the course of his life, now his middle-age work spoke of a deep skepticism, a sort of dark understanding of the world. He said that we use and are used, and that's just the way nature goes, and that there's this sort of randomness to it all. He didn't move away from the randomness, though. He still saw life as being somewhat random and restless. The movement of the world is unexplainable, unexpected. But he began to see order within the chaos. In all the randomness, his poetry, he himself began to see the the movement of the divine, the hand of God at work in it all. And this is reflected in much of his religious poetry. The later poetry does not refute his earlier poetry. It is informed by it. Is the later is informed by the earlier. The amorous secretary went on to inform the faithful cleric. So let's take a look at a couple of Donne's poems. Now this is from the Holy Sonnets. Batter my heart, O three-personed God. Batter my heart, three-personed God, for you as yet but knock, breathe, shine, and seek to mend, that I may rise and stand, o'erthrow me and bend your force to break, blow, burn, make me new. I, like an usurped town, to another do labor to admit you, but oh, to no end. Reason your viceroy in me should defend, but is captivated and proves weak or untrue. Yet dearly I love you, and would be loved fain. But I am betrothed unto your enemy. Divorce me, untie or break that knot again. Take me to you, imprison me, for I, except you enthrall me, never shall be free, nor ever chaste, except you ravish me. Okay, now, so what he's saying here, this is the overarching conceit is the speaker in the poem describes himself like a fort under siege. And he says, you know what? Beat me down. Batter me, attack me. Come to my aid, rescue me. Do whatever you have to do. He says, knock, breathe, shine, seek not to mend, that I may rise and stand, or throw me and bend your force to break, blow, burn, and make me new. Do whatever it takes to get me where I need to be. I, like a usurped town, to another do labor to admit you, but oh, to no end. I said, I, like a captured city, I want to let you in. I want a relationship with you. I want to bring you into my heart, but I can't quite do it. All my effort is in vain. He says, reason your viceroy in me should defend, but is captive and proves weak and untrue. What he's saying here is reason, common sense, knowledge. I can reason out that, the ruler that you put within me should defend, should take up arms against the devil, against sin, against all this temptation. But you know what? I'm captured. I am weak, and I am overwhelmed by my wicked desires, the pleasures of sin, and it proves weak. This principle proves, though it knows what it's supposed to do, it doesn't. It's weak. He says, "Yet dearly I love you, and would be loved fain." That is, I really love you, God, and I want to be loved by you, but I'm engaged to your enemy. Wow, pretty heavy image there, right? He says, I love you, God, I really do, but I'm engaged to the devil. The devil has overwhelmed me. He's taken me for his own. I want to be yours, but I'm kind of spoken for. He goes, but here's what I want you to do. I want you to divorce me. Right? Take me away from Satan. Untie or break the knot again. Like we talk about getting married, we tie the knot. There's the ceremony of hand binding where you and your betrothed have your hands bound together as a symbol of eternal love. Break that knot. Untie the knot. Divorce me. Lord, come and rescue me from the devil and take me to you and imprison me. Okay, and there's this great paradoxical image here because what he's talking about is freedom. The only freedom from sin is to be imprisoned by God, to be the prisoner of God, to give up, like Christians will tell you, not my will, but thine be done. So what they're and talking to God. There's this image of being the slave, like even the Apostle Paul talks about, I'm a slave of Christ. I'm the servant of Christ. Right? So what he's saying is, God, the only way that I can actually be free is to be your prisoner. Except you enthrall me. It says you capture my interest. You capture me. I'll never be free, nor will I ever be pure unless you ravish me. Okay, there's a lot of double imagery here, and there's the ravish in the sense of kidnapping, like in Le Morte d'Arthur, Queen Guinevere is ravished by Sir Maleagance. He's kidnapped, carried away, taken on. And so what he's saying here is there's this wonderful poem. It's a love poem to God. And he says, Lord, my heart won't do what it should. I'm resistant. I am like a city under siege. You must come and take me. You must defeat me. Take me out of the hand. Snatch me away from Satan, from whom I'm engaged to. And because I want to love you, I want to be loved by you. It's the only way I can ever be pure and honest is if you steal me away. It's an incredibly beautiful and powerful poem of a man dealing with his faith. Okay. Now, let's move on to For Whom the Bell Tolls. This was the title of a Hemingway novel. This is a phrase that you hear again and again, particularly the last part of the last quatrain. It has become so much a part of our popular culture. So let's take a look at it. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. If a clod be washed away by the sea, Europe is the less, as well as if a promontory were, as well as if a manor of thy friends or thine own were. Any man's death diminishes me, because I am involved in mankind, and therefore never sin to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. So what he's saying here is, as alone as we may feel in the world, we are not alone. Each one of us, each human being is part of a greater whole, the greater whole of humanity. That's all part of the main. And that every single one of us, every life is precious. He says, he talks about in terms of real estate. And of course, this, particularly in this day and age, it speaks of this even today with the worries about global warming and the erosion of the coastlines and things like that. He says, if a clod is washed away, then Europe is lessened. If even the smallest part of Europe is washed away, like one human being out of the entire human race dies, dies, it's as if a great promontory were gone. Think about it in terms here in America. If a small clod of dirt, like a farmer would pick up or plow under in his field, was washed away from the coastline, it would be the same as if Florida were suddenly gone. That's how humanity works. It goes, if one person dies, it's as if an entire state, a vast portion of land is gone. And he says, any man's death diminishes me. The death of anyone at all makes me a bit smaller, a bit lesser, because I'm involved with mankind, because we're all part of the human race here. Okay? There's almost a sort of Buddhist sensibility here where we're all part of the greater whole. And that's kind of what, now he's not preaching Buddhism here. He was an Anglican priest, or a cleric rather, but he's saying kind of the same sentiment, that every life is important. Like that wonderful quote from Doctor Who, and I'm going to mangle it a bit, but for 4,000 years I've been doing this. I've never met one human life that wasn't significant. And he says, and therefore never sin to know for whom the bell tolls. Now this is an image for funeral bells. If you had American Lit 1, we studied Poe's the bells. He talks about the funeral bells. When there was a death in the family, they would ring the church bell, so the people would come in from the fields, and they would come to help prepare the body and prepare for the wake. The body would be kitchen door would typically be taken off, put on a couple of sawhorses as a cooling board, and the deceased would be laid out on it. Then they would put a pall over it, a cloth, a funereal cloth, usually black, to keep flies off the body, not to be too graphic, but and so funeral bells would be rung to let people know to come and prepare. He says, so therefore never send to know for whom the bell tolls. He says, don't ask who is that funeral bell ringing for. It's ringing for you. Okay. Not that you're about to die or that you have died, but that every death diminishes us. Every death of a human being is something significant, and as if we had passed. And the part here about, as well as if the manner of thy friend or thy own were gone. And so it says, what he's saying is, if your house or your friend's house were taken away, you would grieve in the same way, as if, as like a human being dies. Okay, so that, ladies and gentlemen, is the amazing metaphysical poet John Donne. Lived from 1572 to 1631. I hope you found this interesting. John Donne is an amazing fellow. I hope you'll read and search out more of his work. For the time being, that's it, and I will see you in the next video.